Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Game of Gymnastics podcast. This week I'm joined by Joe Fishburn, a Team Gym athlete who's competed at the Europeans and gotten a silver and bronze medal for Team GB and the Gladiators Season 2 Ultimate Male winner. We'll talk about his experiences in Team Gym and Gladiators and how they compare, and how he uses adversity as his superpower. I hope you enjoy.
Hi Joe, how you doing?
I'm good. Look, we made it happen. We're here. We made it happen. Lastminute.com.
Yeah, it was very hectic trying to sort all this stuff out. So I'm very glad to have finally pinned you down after the Rise comp, which was how long ago now?
That was last year, wasn't it? Was it summer last year?
Like mid last year.
Made it happen.
Yeah, been trying to get it done since then. So how did you first get into gymnastics, and what made you decide to stick with Team Gym specifically?
So, as people listening may know, when I was 2, I lost my mum. And my grandma, Christine, whom people may have seen on telly last year, brought me up from the age of 2. And she sent me to a gymnastics class with Scarborough Gymnastics Academy, which was like an after-school class in a sports hall where they initially started their sessions. And she sent me there, and I always say this to all the kids that I deliver talks to, as a means to burn energy. I was a young boy. I was jumping off things, being crazy, running up walls. I had so much energy, and she sent me. And Scarborough Gymnastics specialised in doing Team Gym specifically. So I think you might know, but when you're young, I feel like you just start doing gymnastics, and then slightly further down the line, you actually realise, okay, I feel like the discipline finds you. Because obviously there was no artistic setup within maybe an hour of where I was. And then maybe when I was like 7, 8, I started, actually, I understand a little bit more what I'm doing. We're using a trampet. And when I watched the Olympics and other big competitions, I obviously realised what I was doing was slightly different.
So you did sort of Team Gym out of sort of convenience to start with then, just because there wasn't an artistic gym around.
Yeah.
But then you stuck with it because it was what you were good at, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I stuck with it because it was convenient. It was local. They have an amazing setup there that's obviously helped so many hundreds of thousands of children provide opportunities. And I stuck at it. I talk very openly online about how I wasn't very good. I was very average as a gymnast initially. I remember sometimes not making teams. I remember feeling like I wasn't good enough sometimes, not because of anybody else, but just because my friends would be doing the skills. And I talk about how I very much was the end of had to work hard. It wasn't given to me. I am not very talented. And I always start my talks with kind of my achievements. And then I always go back and break down myself and show all the setbacks. And I actually really didn't achieve too much that would be noteworthy until I was about 17 years of age. So I was genuinely very average for quite a while. But I preach about enjoyment, and that's the way gymnastics should be, especially at a young age, as they go into higher performance or competitive sport. And I only feel like I can say that because I see hundreds of kids week in, week out who do gymnastics. And yourself, you see the broad spectrum. You see kids that are so talented and maybe achieve loads very quickly and lose the love for it. And you see children on the other end who maybe could do with a little bit more of a competitive edge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's fair enough. I'm very similar with what you said about like not really having done anything of note until quite old for a gymnast, I suppose, for like a junior gymnast. Because it would have been 2021, where I finally actually started to get into the hang of things. Like I started off really good to start with, and then I sort of peaked there, dropped down, and then I sort of had to jump back up after lockdown sort of time. Sometimes it ebbs and flows, and it's different for everyone. And you need to remember that it is different for everyone. Just because people are doing certain things and you're not, doesn't mean you're worse than them, etc., etc. To actually get artistic, like there's 6 apparatus. Someone's going to be better than you on something.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. I think when you observe across social media, a lot of people, you never really see the bad days, the flaws, the setbacks. And again, we're doing a talk campaign at the minute where I go across the country talking about adversity being your superpower. And I love putting on what I've achieved on the board. 2-time European medalist, 6-time national champion, Gladiators champion. And even yesterday, I had a child at one of the school visits I was doing, and she said something along the lines of, how did it feel to win Gladiators? And it kind of sinks in that last year on telly, the way it came across, that opportunity was probably one of the first times in my life I've actually won, or what people would think success maybe looks like. Because my 2 European medals are silver and bronze. My favorite European medal was coming third because of the journey. I'd already been selected for a comp. I fell over in the European final. I had like the best day and the worst day ever, getting that opportunity, making a mistake. I had 2 years of training. It nearly got cancelled because of COVID. Someone in the team was like around somebody that obviously had or was, when they were doing track and trace and all of that. And yeah, so half our team didn't fly out to the competition. 2 people got injured, and then we went out in the final and got a medal. And my message is really that you can't compare your story to somebody else's. And a lot of the time you are seeing someone's highlight reel. So I like to be quite open. And yeah, artistic is tough, man. That is a whole another level of commitment and dedication. And I like to kind of say that is the cornerstone of gymnastics. But what's been really cool is to actually see so many of the other disciplines having these opportunities to jump into the spotlight, do different things. And that's what's so cool about Gladiators, just getting put into a bit of a spotlight for a time and being able to, I feel like, leave my stamp on Team Gym and hopefully move on from that.
Yeah, I've really been, I guess, made more aware of the other disciplines in recent times, years, sort of thing. I mean, my girlfriend being an ex-acro gymnast kind of does that. But but yeah, no, I do agree with you though. So obviously I do autistic, and you mentioned there that, well, we've already mentioned multiple times that you did Team Gym. Did?
Well, I did. After filming Gladiators, we competed again.
Yep.
I went to Azerbaijan, competed. And I think my gymnastics career has come to a natural close, I think, potentially. I don't think I'm ever going to post on Instagram saying I'm hanging up my leotard. Because I kind of promised I would never do that. But I think it's now time for me to try and focus on other areas of my life where I can potentially help me with some longevity, and just try and pass on what I've learned to the next generation.
All right, yeah. Well, obviously, you mentioned the competitions and everything like that. But for those who don't know, what is Team Gym?
Oh, well, I used to kind of call it the Sunday League of Gymnastics, but that's doing it a disservice now, because 10 years ago, it probably was seen as that. So it originates from Scandinavia. We compete across 3 pieces: tumbling, trampet vault, which comes together, and the floor. So we perform in a team environment. It's a team competition. There's kind of full teams and smaller team competitions, but the original is a full team competition. Everybody has to go on the floor, compete a routine, which is composed of dance elements, choreography and time, and also skills. So maybe acro elements, balance elements. And then obviously on tumble, you've got 3 runs. One has to be forwards, one has to be backwards, and one can be either, and mixed. The first run, everybody has to do the same. It's like a same run, or a compulsory run, it's called. And that's the same on trampet and trampet vault. And it's been really cool to actually see the sport go from maybe level 2 to like level 10 now, where what I mean is, when I was growing up, I turned 25 last week, and I remember standing at competitions and watching somebody do a double front was like a big deal. And now, like, you kind of have to be doing like a triple to be even considered like decent as a man. And you have so many amazing women doing triples. You have so many of the skills now are just insane. Like, and I've seen like the first person in the UK do a triple, compete it. I've got to do it myself. And then I've seen it now drop down to where you've got 14-year-olds doing it. And it's so cool to see the standard of something raised so high, so quickly as well. And I think that's where, obviously I'm biased, but what's really good about Team Gym is I thoroughly believe it's a real spectator sport. And in this day and age, we should be trying to get as many people to get involved in gymnastics, but watch it as well. And you'll know, like with artistic competitions, I think there's so much going on at kind of different times and stuff. When you're watching 6 people run down the track one after another, nearly get landed on, somebody falls over, makes a mistake, it's the arena comes alive.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it there, because I think artistic is not very spectator coded, I suppose. Like, they're trying to do things to it, but just fundamentally, we've got 6 apparatus. Competitions take 3 hours long-ish. It can drag on for quite a long time, and like maintaining that sort of energy audience-wise is very difficult. So I think Team Gym being a lot more sort of quick, fast pace is quite
Good.
in that sense. I think another thing that you mentioned there was sort of the skill progression or the skill. Someone said it the other day. It was on the podcast. It was a DMT coach basically talking about the exact same thing happening in DMT, especially over recent years. And that's very much a sort of spectator thing as well. You get one run, two jumps, two in the final, I think. So these other disciplines of gymnastics can sort of be routes in that are more sort of spectator friendly, I suppose.
Yeah,
That's how.
I think, firstly, I think DMT is absolutely crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I spent years of my life trying to get us away from the trampoline, and they're like, I want to land on it. And it's saying the trampoline, and I'm like, wow, I'm nowhere near spatially aware enough to be good at doing something like that. So fair play to them. I think we just have to be super open with kind of the world now in terms of how gymnastics can actually grow. And so many people are doing this. Like, there's an amazing company called Face Off who are really bringing the spectator sport towards bigger audiences across Scandinavia, incorporating lots of different teams and bringing different disciplines, tumblers, team gymmers, people together. Because over there, it's such a big thing and a big deal. And I think all gymnastics is great and important. I just think it's super important that if every single bit of gymnastics gets marginally bigger or there's more eyes watching it, you've got a trickle down effect, whether that's me getting a child that's coming to one of our sessions in Newcastle and then goes on and does something else, or whether that's someone who watches it for the first time and then maybe spends a few months doing some tumbling and goes, oh, like, I really want to go on the bars, and goes down that route.
I spoke and trained with Jim Haddock years, and he's definitely been on Face Off. Like, I watched the videos of him doing that. It's crazy.
He's an amazing tumbler. Again, I'm not massively close or in with them.
Yeah.
I just love watching it, and it's the kind of thing where my kids, I'll tell the kids that I coach Face Off, watch this, because what it does is it's putting out the highest level of gymnastics possible while also rewarding gymnasts for artistic flair or uniqueness, which I think is so cool. And you see that sometimes it can be hard to get that in codes of gymnastics. And what you see with that is some of the kids, they'll watch Face Off and then they'll come in and they're trying to like double gainer. And I'm like, whoa, like, chill out a little bit. It's like, oh, I saw this like triple side flip. And you're like, yeah, okay, maybe not. But it's cool to see it leading to the kids being more creative and actually doing that. And I think that's something all gymnastics can kind of, I don't know, take a note from.
All right. So a bit onto sort of your own competitions. Obviously, you said it like talking about the setbacks. So let's
Here we go.
Focus on the highlights. What were your sort of European experiences like? What were the build-ups like? Things like that.
Oh, wow. I mean, my first ever European competition was in 2018 in Portugal, and I'd missed out 2 years before. I wasn't at the level good enough. I had an injury. I broke my leg, and I wasn't good enough to be kind of kept in and seen while having that injury, where they may have brought someone in later who was better than me maybe and not being injured or whatever. Missed out on that. I say all the time, I remember sitting at home watching two of my best mates at the time go and compete, and I was so happy for them, and I was almost like, I was upset. There was definitely jealousy. I wanted to do that, but I was so happy. I think that's fine to admit that, and I like to share that and be vulnerable. Lots of training. After I broke my leg, I started feeling, right, you know what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to really push myself here, and I started being able to, I suppose, turn that fear into actual action. I wish sometimes I was still like that now, a little bit more less thoughtful, but started progressing. Got selected for the national team, which was really cool. One of the best achievements I've ever had. Went out, did the competition, and made a big mistake in the final. The team, we had like 3 or 4 falls in the final. You can't be doing that. We weren't good enough to medal. I think because we came fourth, like one of the toughest positions to be. We were so happy. We were so young, but also we were sad because if you came fifth, there's a little bit more distance between you and third, and that had kind of been drilled into us. Oh, it'd be amazing to get a medal. So my expectations hadn't been set, but when we went underneath them, I thought 3 years later, I'd kind of set my sights on a medal. I thought, right, I need to achieve a European medal. I just got to work, dedicated a lot of time to it, and there was so many setbacks. Again, injuries. The virus was very prominent in this era. The comp got cancelled twice. We were training on Zoom while trying to like play games and find pictures of toasters and things that were red. Playing all those games on Zoom we used to play. Yeah. Went to the comp. Half our team didn't fly out, so I went to the Europeans and did podium without half our team. There's 4 of us on the floor doing the floor routine. the team arrived because they had to pass lots of tests and they came a day later. And I remember they ran on the floor halfway through podium, got like just the trampette, missed the floor and the tumble. I had 2 injuries in that as well. 2 people came and got injured. So we ended up going out to the final we'd gone from like a team of 10 to a team of 8. And that causes changes to formations in the floor routine. Like, you'll know if you pick up an injury, you have to maybe change your routine very quickly behind the scenes or whatever. So we were changing the floor for the European finals in the car park before we did it. And I think all of these things, being in those environments, really built up a level of sense of belief, but also, right, I know I can do this. I know going into this environment, I felt it before. Whereas 3 years before, I'd walked out into an arena of a few thousand people, watching online, watching in person, and I felt alive. I felt like I could do anything. I couldn't control the adrenaline. This time, I felt like we had such a strong bond as a team. We were doing it for the people injured. It was honestly incredible. We went out, got the medal, and this is a big thing that I pass on to the gymnasts and really try and hit home with. I stood on the podium, I thought about my mum, and I realised in that moment it was over. It was about a minute and a half stood on the podium. And besides, obviously it was the best thing ever. And like being able to put that in my Instagram bio or whatever. But looking back, and it's the same with all the gymnastics really in the comps and my career, I've really realised that actually the journey is where it makes you into the person you are. And this is what I try to preach now. Like to all the gymnasts, like you focus on getting better every single day, going to the gym when you don't feel like it, doing the work and enjoying that process. Because if I'd have given up when I was 12, I mean, I see so many kids that come into the gym and they go through really hard times, tricky times, and they're so much better than I was, and they give up. And the only reason I stuck at it was because I enjoyed it. I had a supportive grandma who was just always saying, right, you enjoy it. You just had a bad week or you had a bad session. I was doing rugby alongside. I think that really helped. You have a bad comp, you can go and do rugby. You have a bad rugby game, you can do gymnastics. And I just stuck at it. And then these things started happening. And most of my gymnastics success came from when I was 17 plus. So it's really like we just had a chat off before we started recording about you have to really kind of, I think, say to yourself that you're going to commit to something for a long time. Like you have with the podcast, been so consistent. You've said, look, I don't care what actually happens or comes from this in the short term, but I want to be doing this in the long term. I just had that in me from gymnastics. And I think you're most of the time destined to succeed in something if you just throw as much time at it as possible. Doesn't mean you're not going to fail or have bad days.
I think gymnastics sort of drills that into you a little bit, like the ability to just put just so much time and effort into something with the knowledge that eventually it will pan out. Because when we learn skills, it can sometimes take upwards of a year, 2 years, something like towards that for a single skill. And you start with the preps, you work your way up, you build from there. And that could be a process of maybe even half a decade just to get from first trying a skill to putting it in a routine and feeling confident about it. So that ability to sort of put time and effort into something and know that it's not going to pan out in the short term, but it will in the long term. I think gymnastics is very good for sort of drilling that into you.
Absolutely. And I think I couldn't agree more with the life lessons it teaches. And I think that if I hadn't done gymnastics, some of the things that I've encountered in the last few years, when you become an adult and you have to do proper jobs and all sorts, there isn't as many people there to help. You have to have a sense of self-belief. And I do believe you have to be a little bit crazy, you have to have something a little bit wrong with you, because this is why all the elite performers, people expect them to be incredible all-rounders. And I think it's so unfair that somebody could be so good at something and you expect them to maybe be really good at nurturing a relationship or doing whatever. And it's so tough that you have to be a little bit crazy, yeah, to say, right, look, I am willing. And it's hard in the moment, isn't it? Like you have to achieve something to be able to sit back and go, oh, right, I know now I'm going to be more present. And going into Gladiators, genuinely, I know I won, but I promise, and I promise myself, and I like to think that my standard was, or my expectations was, if I can get on the show, I've absolutely hit the jackpot. I've won. If I can share my story with my mum, with the world, if I can get that chance, I don't really care what happens. If I make myself look silly, if I make a mistake, I've done it all before. And I think it comes from my childhood, but I have a way of being able to carry something like that. And if I could make a mistake, I would rather it happen to me. If I experience hardship, I'd like to endure it myself. And I think it comes from the empathy and of what I've experienced, actually being able to deal with stuff because I knew there was a greater good or a possibility of a greater good. And that's the same thing. You're doing this. You don't know who's listening, who may have really needed to hear a conversation you did, or the gymnasts that really needed to hear you talk about just how many injuries you've had over the last year. But you're just like, oh yeah, but I'm all right. It's important.
So obviously you mentioned Gladiators there. How did that opportunity actually come about?
I first met somebody who's now one of my business partners in Newcastle when I went to work for a multi-sport camp that he did. And the first thing he said to me was, you need to do Gladiators. And I was like, at the time, like I'd heard of it. It was just when they were looking for people and it was starting again before Series 1. So maybe like a year before Series 1. And he said, you're perfect. It's you. Rugby, gymnast, you're built for it. And he was called Roddy. He was on Gladiators in 1993. Very famously, he lost his shorts against Wolf, and he became more kind of fame or memorable than probably most people out of the 90s because of that happening. And I actually applied to be a Gladiator and didn't get picked for the first series. So there you go. There's another kind of rejection or setback, if you want, that nobody kind of sees. Came out, watched it. I thought, great, that's a bit of me. And later, when they started, I suppose, recruiting for Series 2, we said, right, we're going to do it again, put in an application for both Gladiator and a contender. I was like, I want my moment. I want a chance. I suppose I thought that if I put 2 applications in, I've got double the chance of someone seeing. Because you've got to remember that, I mean, I don't have a number figuratively to actually say, but there's like tens of thousands of people that are applying for this and doing this. Like, you can't even put a figure on it. And we really went with the fact that, okay, if anything happens or comes of it, amazing. But I put it to the back of my mind and I moved on. I remember getting off the plane and I checked my spam folder. We'd just come back from Ibiza and I checked the spam folder because that's what normal people do when they get off the plane. Then they look at their emails. And there was an email in there saying, I would love to speak to you about Gladiators. And it was a Friday afternoon. And I realized that they probably wouldn't be looking at their emails until Monday. So I spent the whole weekend being like, oh my gosh, have I missed this, whatever. And I deservedly so, because if you don't check your spam, you miss things, right? I got on the phone, got a call, you had to have a chat basically, and then I'm guessing they were sounding you out and to see if they actually wanted you to come to the tryouts that they run. So they ran this tryouts, and really all I can describe it out as is essentially a group of fitness tests that you do to see if you would be suitable for the show. Put you in front of a camera a little bit, you do all sorts, and did that. I tried to make myself stand out as much as possible. I had, like you did, I wore a red GB vest, I remember, because I thought, you've got to play the game. Some of it is, okay, if you can stand out, I mean, you've got maybe 100 people there. Yeah. How can you stand out? And there was some of the fittest, most incredible athletes there I've ever seen. There was people who were rowing for the quickest speeds you've ever seen, jumping off, doing sprints, hitting bends fast, all sorts. And it was incredible to see. Had a chat there, did a bit in front of camera and went away. And I genuinely left thinking, right, you know what? I've given 110% there. By doing that, I was so content. I knew I couldn't have done anything else. I hadn't told my mum. I drove from Newcastle, 6 hours, did the 3 or 4 or 5 hours trial, whatever it was, and drove back. And on the way back, I rang my mum, my grandma, and I said, oh, I've been in London. She's like, what have you been doing? Because she still gets worried about me doing whatever. And she was like, oh, I can't believe you've done that. You're going to get on. You're going to get picked for that now. So you're going to do that. And she was really worried. And I was like, no, there's no way that's going to happen. Nah, you're being silly. Because I didn't want to be confident in any way, shape or form because I hadn't been given any signs of hope besides getting to the trial. Then I got an email. You've been kind of shortlisted. And by shortlisted, it's like you may be in 100 people. So you're still like, oh my word, but like this is never going to happen. Then I think it goes down a little bit less and less and less. And I remember I got a call saying, we want you to do this process. But by that time, you still don't actually know if you're going on the show because they have to do all the background and without going into how they do make the show, because it's not my place to say, they have to be prepared for anything. They have to have lots of people. You have to do training before the show, obviously, in which things can happen. So it is not confirmed whether you're doing it exactly. And I just remember every single step of the way, I was thinking, I'm going to enjoy this because, and you see it, people get hurt, people get injured, things happen. that you can't control. It is like the most uncontrollable thing. And people say to me, or they message me and they're like, is it scripted? Or they say, oh, it's got to be scripted. Like, honestly, they are creating the greatest television show. They're putting people, superhuman elite athletes, Olympians, against average Joes, if you like. People, they come from sporting backgrounds. They have maybe experience like me, obviously gymnastics and rugby. Do you think they're just kind of giving them prompts back before they go, oh, no, this is going on telly, but you need to take it really easy? It is brutal. Absolutely brutal. And I feel like the people that have done it really share a bond because they know how hard it is just to even get there.
Do you mean specifically the training, the actual sort of, would you call it like events, like the events themselves? Like what specifically about it is difficult?
I knew it would require you to be incredibly physically fit in some way, shape or form. You have CrossFitters, gymnasts, calisthenic athletes. If you are more of a calisthenic athlete or like yourself, gymnast who is well versed with the bars, the rings, you would kind of be holding on, right, I'm going to be better at the eliminator. For those watching who don't watch the show, what do you do with your Saturday nights? But essentially you have a series of events or games where you go against the gladiators. I see that as you're testing them, you're challenging them, and they shouldn't really lose. But when they lose, it's good television, but it's their thing. You're stepping into their arena. And then the eliminator, you have a race with the other person that's been doing that, and whoever gets round the fastest wins. The calisthenics athletes, gymnasts, they like the eliminator in maybe the aerial games, hand tough, classic, whereas some of maybe the rugby people or the other CrossFitters that go in might feel better at playing Powerball, which is a contact-based sport. So it's you essentially have to be, without trying to big myself up, you essentially have to have a background in contact sports and be either a gymnast, calisthenics, high-level CrossFitter, or experience with bodyweight exercise, because there's going to be something that kind of you come a cropper on. Besides being physically tough, it was so mentally demanding. You being put out there, as you'll know, as a gymnast, you're going out there, you're competing this weekend. Hopefully you're going to have a great comp. Now, just for a moment, think that besides going out there in that arena, everything you've worked for, in the back of your mind, you've signed the rights to this going out on television. A very, very popular show that has come back from the 90s. Everybody's watching it. I think it was something between 80 and 90 million people over the series watched it. I'm just pulling, that's what I remember. And maybe each weekend there's between like 6 and 9 million people watching it, depending on what's happening. And you know that before you do it. Imagine going out there tomorrow and knowing whatever you do, that many people are going to see it. So it was tough. I had to really focus on, right, what's first? I'm doing this. Doesn't go well, that's absolutely fine. You've got the next one. Went well, right, what do we do? Next one. And it's a long day filming. You have to really back yourself and prepare well. Like, you'll know, you could tell me now, I'm sure, your apparatus order for tomorrow, depending on how, I suppose, specific you are with it, you might know that depending on the order, how you're going to feel after each one, how tired you're going to be, how fatigued you're going to be, how actually it's going to affect you, what you do in between. I mean, you might have a big gap in between your pieces, so you might have time to cool down almost, or have to do a bit of a cool down and start ramping it back up. There's a whole host of things behind the 55-minute television show that you watch on Saturday night.
So was there ever a point sort of when you were filming, when you were doing it, where you sort of thought this might not go my way, or alternatively where you thought, oh, I might actually have this, I might actually be able to win?
I get asked this all the time. Genuinely, I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, but I never thought I would win. And I had people around me saying, you can do this. The way my mind works, I have to really focus on the task in hand. If you put something in my calendar for next week, you ruin my day. I have to really focus on, right, what's going on now? What am I doing? And I don't know if that's a coping mechanism. Maybe some therapist will tell me that I need to speak to somebody from what I've experienced in childhood. But I can carry a lot. And I knew that the bigger picture, the greater good, like we discussed, was the child that's maybe lost their mum, maybe having a really hard time at home, or the gymnast that used to get bullied or still gets bullied for it, gets called a girl, gets homophobic comments thrown at them. Like, I've had it all. And that's not like feel sorry for me, but I knew that I could put myself in a position where it could maybe help someone. And in the first show, the guy I was against was called Junior. Great guy, lovely guy, really good kind of guy, where I found out I was against him and I was like, oh, come on, he's gonna be so good. And he ended up tearing his hamstring in the last event. In that same event, I really hurt my shoulder. I just took a couple of really awkward landings, previous injury as well. And it's taken took about a year to rehab it to where I'd like it. And I came off there thinking, we've been here all day. He's just tore his hamstring. I don't know if he's going to be able to do the eliminator. And what if they put someone else in? And then I realised, look, either way, I've got one thing. I've got a job to do. My job, at the end, go around that course as quick as possible. That's my job. Same thing, you tomorrow. Doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, unless you're going to go and try and push them over. It's not going to end well. Or tamper with them. Your job, you can only do what you can do. So I did that a couple of times. Obviously, having that moment with my mum after the first show, going through the paper first was incredible. Then happened again, and we ended up in the final. Now, the final, I enjoyed so much because I knew there was going to be a real good chance with the person I was against that I could come second. That might be a lack of self-belief that I definitely still experience, but Mus, incredible athlete, calisthenics guy, must be 20 kilos lighter than me. Now, he is quicker than me, better at doing the eliminator, and I knew I would need a head start. I didn't even think about it because I was thinking about the task in hand. Before we went out for the final, I spoke to Roddy, and he said, you've got a 6-second head start, you can win. And I thoroughly believe in that moment that I had my opportunity, and I thought two things. I thought, oh my word, I could potentially win, or I'm going to look even worse when I come second because he's going to smash me and I have a head start. And there's times like this in life, I think it's really hard to see in the moment, but an opportunity will just come around, and how you respond or act in that moment can completely change the trajectory of where you're going. And I stood at the starting line looking at my grandma. It's brought me up from 2, and like a picture of my late mum on the side that they'd printed off, and it has banners and whatever. And I just felt like I could do anything. I felt like the adrenaline rush before a competition where, if you've experienced it, you hear these stories about people lifting cars off people when they're trapped and stuff. It's like that. Like, I could have lost my arm on that eliminator course, and I was so in the moment, I think I would have not realised till I got to the end. And gymnastics had taught me, when that happens, to ground yourself and take a few breaths, because otherwise you're on your back, you fall over. So it was cool. It was the best moment of my life, getting to go through that paper, give the trophy to my mum. My grandma, Christine, brought me up. I felt like it was a metaphorical thank you, which is genuinely something that I'll take to the grave with me. It was amazing.
That is awesome.
Why don't we get you on Gladiators? Why don't you put a little application in?
Didn't do a contact sport.
I'll teach you.
Well, I'm seeing how gymnastics goes for now. well.
No, my body's really hurt, so I'm going to see how one of the toughest sports.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. Gymnastics is first for me. Always will be, and has been for my whole life, really. So any other opportunities, they're fine. They'll come later in life, but I'm not going to try and bite off more than I can chew right about now. You mentioned right at the start, and I've seen it across your Instagram, things like that you've used the phrase adversity is my superpower.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually mean?
I think the things that happen to us, the challenges we face, the struggles are quite often the greatest things that can happen. Now, in the moment, you're probably never going to be able to accept that or realize that. But I always go back to kind of my experience with it. Now, if I hadn't have lost my mum, I wouldn't have gone to live with my grandma. She wouldn't have sent me to gymnastics. In gymnastics, if I hadn't have continued and gone through kind of all those bullying comments, the homophobic comments, the remarks, feeling like quitting, I would never have got my opportunity to even not go to my first Euros. When I didn't get picked, there was a route there. Stop, continue. Took the continue route. Got to my first Euros. That was incredible. Then there was a little bit more struggle, challenge, setback, came fourth. Again, opportunity presents itself. Yes or no? Which way are you going? I wanted a medal. Same thing. Challenges, struggle, all of those things we spoke about. Got the medal. If I hadn't have got the medal, I wouldn't have got 2. If I hadn't have got a medal, would they have seen my Gladiator application? If they hadn't have not looked over my first Gladiator application and I hadn't submitted both, would they have seen my picture? If I hadn't have represented Team GB, would they have seen the picture I used, which was a Team GB headshot, and thought, I'm going to give this guy a call? I think every single thing has a purpose in your life. And I like to try and spread my positive take on adversity, because I think you have 2 options. You either have the option, and those stories that I've just said there, those moments, you have 2 options. It's either let it really affect you and stop. And I actually think sometimes that's not a bad thing. I don't necessarily think that my mindset is 100% healthy all the time. You have to be able to have those moments where you feel down, to reflect, to maybe redirect where you're going. And I've certainly had the struggles. But I think you have an option where you can use that. And without those things that had happened to me, there's no way I would have got on the show. There's no way I'd have had those opportunities to go and take the title. Since getting the title, I took part in the first Gladiators live tour last year. The dates just got released this morning for the next one. I'm hoping I get an opportunity to go and perform in these arenas again, or in an arena. Incredible. And all of that came from, if you didn't know me, probably what you would empathize with or feel was the worst thing that could ever happen to a child. So I want to really spread that. And I consider myself lucky. I avoided care. I had a kinship carer, which is kinship, a charity I do a lot of work for now. I'm an ambassador for. And they're people who step in and look after these children who go through these things. And they're just the most amazing people. If I can do anything to spread the awareness of that, that's great, as a kind of little side quest of what I'm doing. And I think that now I can really, if I can leave a bit of a mark on, I suppose, the sport, those people that maybe have seen the show or look up to what I've done or want to be a gymnast or a medalist in any way, I would like to leave them with actually those things that challenge you. Don't let them define you. Let them become the bit about you that people really like and builds you to help you rather than break you down for the rest of your life.
Because it can either be
Make or break.
Yeah, you can let it motivate you, or you can let it break you down.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, like you said, maybe it's not the best thing 100% of the time to be like on it and just like, no matter what setbacks come, you go straight through it. Like, obviously that's not going to be even possible most of the time. Because like, even when you think about things like injuries, you can't just push through it.
Well, but when you say it, and this is why I'm so aware, my message isn't like push through every single thing that happens to you. Don't acknowledge your feelings. Like we live in a time now where I definitely think as a man, it can be hard to openly chat and say you need help, and it's definitely hard to do that because I've been in times and moments like that myself. But hearing you say that, I think, oh, it's a little bit crazy when I'm kind of saying this, but I think it is.
I mean, you're not saying what I just said.
No, no. The injury thing is hard, but I know we, like, as gymnasts, like I've been in times myself where you really understand your body, and sometimes it's really hard, which is why we have such incredible teams around us that are making decisions. Because you put me out there in the Gladiators final and my arm's broken, I'm probably going to tell you it's fine. But if someone's there objectively looking at it and going, you are not okay, in those moments of high emotion, you need that, which is why the decision comes out of our hands. And that's why we've got coaches, and that's the role of a good coach.
It's not having the negative things be nothing to you and just powering through it and just forgetting about them. It's using them in the right way, I suppose. Because if you just dismiss them, you'll bottle it up. Like, you still carry it with you. It's just going to be in a different form, where you're going to be suppressing it, and it will come back to bite you. But if you can use it and reframe it and use it as motivation, use it as fuel for you to keep going, keep moving in the right direction, it's still there and you still know it's there. It's not subconscious, but it's reframed. It's in a different light, and you can go on in a healthier way than if you just ignored it, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And it's also not giving up. Yeah. I mean, adversity or struggles, setbacks, it's difficult. And it always will be. I mean, gymnasts know that better than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't run around saying that losing my mum. Well, I do. That's a complete lie. I do now run around saying that losing my mum was the best thing to ever happen to me. In that moment,
Obviously,
that was the utmost tragedy for my family. My grandma lost her daughter and had to bring up her son, her grandchild. And I'm so thankful I was lucky that I had that. Some people don't have that. But again, I think that if I can share and be vulnerable, my experience, how I feel sometimes, how clearly I manage this and deal with it, and it's something I'm still finding out today of how to actually manage these things. If I can share that, when somebody does face challenge, adversity, that may be a glimmer of hope to help them. It's very much not me saying, "Oh, you've hurt yourself, like you're fine,
get up."
Like, yeah. It's, I mean, we're not in a generation where anything like that is remotely acceptable. And I think it's super hard that in the moment when something bad happens to us, same thing if something bad happens to me and you were just saying, well, remember, Joe, adversity is your superpower. This is great. I highly doubt I'd be laughing. But I think that it can often be the greatest thing, or build you into the person or the greatest person you can become.
It's more of a long-term sort of thing than a short-term thing. It's in the moment. Yeah.
Don't worry, this will be great in 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in about a year, you're gonna thank yourself for this one.
Because you've had your fair share over the last few months of challenge and experience.
Yes.
And again, I suppose years, you, like you say, you either have the opportunity of that concluding what you do, or you have that opportunity of now sharing it with people, and next time it comes up, being slightly better at handling it, understanding it more, working. Oh, actually, I think I saw you talk about how you'd had a bit of time to actually go backwards and focus on some other bits, maybe some basics or something, right? And that's like gymnastics all I want. First stages of rehab is, okay, go back and start from the bottom up. And sometimes by doing that, that's making you, well, all the time by going backwards, it's making you a better gymnast going forwards. That's how to do gymnastics. Sometimes you wouldn't have realized that if you hadn't have gone through those things.
I mean, and I definitely get what you're saying with how things going wrong and being bad in the short term can still end up being positives in the long term. Because I mean, I said this about getting let go of squad in 2019. I'd been in the squad for 5 years, development squad, like little baby squad. So I was like 14 at the time. Been in the squad since I was 10 years old. That was all I'd really known. And I'd sort of taken it for granted a little bit. Had a series of bad comps, ended with the national finals, just the worst comp, and got let go of squad. But in the end, months, year sort of passed. And it wasn't like a conscious decision to sort of use it as motivation, but it had done that. It had a little bit of a fire underneath me. It had made me realize that I was taking gymnastics for granted and that I did need to, it was a bit of a kick up the backside. And sometimes that is what you need. If you then told me that, like, this is going to be motivation.
14-year-old Winston.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have did best.
Don't worry, Winston. It's going to be,
after getting
it's actually going to be the best thing that ever happens to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is true. It's
hindsight's a great thing.
Hindsight is a great thing. And in the moment, yes, it's difficult, but eventually things will get better, is I suppose the sort of thing. But
that's where I think you can just stack the cards in your favor. It's where I think it's a game, as in you can't be beaten if you don't give up. And as cliche as that is, it doesn't matter how good you were at the last comp. If you do 10 more, you're probably going to win at some point.
And eventually you're going to be at the point where the routines are going to get better. Like the skills are going to get better. The routines are going to get better. The all-round's going to get better. You may not be exactly where you want to be, but you're going to be a hell of a lot better, a lot further in the right direction. You're going to be better at competing, better at handling the pressure of competing, putting your hand up in front of judges, in front of an audience. So all of these things are beneficial. And again, it's just back to numbers. It's just back to time invested. And that's what gymnastics is, I suppose.
It's a very, I don't know, small way, a concise way of putting gymnastics into its reps. But as someone, I'd never, ever really thought about I suppose, the volume of when you're in it. I think it's quite hard. Until I became a coach, I then understood actually you can really, like if you do the reps, it works. And often failures come when you don't do the reps. And that's the thing. There's so many things I'm terrible at. And you've got to kind of, I suppose, decide what you want to be bad at. And same thing in gymnastics. It's like, it's such a big commitment. But if you can do more than everyone else, if you can have a longevous career, you'll ultimately have some success.
Also, it depends what success is for a person. Is it something to do with yourself? Is it just getting better? Is it putting a score out? Or is it something to do with other people? Or is it coming first? Because if you've got a score if it's just a goal to do with, I want to or this amount, or I want to put this routine out, you can actually control those things. You can control how you end up competing. You control what you put into your routine. You can't control what other people do. So is it better to have a goal of, I want to come first? Because in the end, it's a competition. You're going to need to qualify for events if you want to go to those events. But then at the same time, is it better to just have those internal goals, just for yourself?
My greatest gymnastics achievement in my eyes, and the one that I'll remember the most, was coming third. And all the time, I say that in assemblies and kids go, or they think, I can see them thinking, oh, well, you're not that good. Don't mean you came third. I defined success as coming third, and it was the greatest feeling ever. And something always sticks in my head from a creator that I really like. James Smith, I first heard him say this a few years ago, and he said that all wins feel the same. I don't think it's from him directly. And as soon as I listened to that, I thought, nah, that's not right. But the more and more that I do things, you can gain the most incredible feeling of happiness or success in your eyes from something so small. Maybe it's the time of a day where you listen to Winston's podcasts because You should be.
It's
And
so good.
and you go out and you grab a coffee and you go for a walk and you clear your head. Maybe no matter what I do, my favorite time of the week is still being able to spend time with my grandma. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's probably not, do you know what I mean, getting that medal or whatever. Get to go to these arenas and perform in front of her, all of these things. When a parent messages me or a child comes up to me in an arena and goes, "You're the reason why I started gymnastics. I've won, checkmate." That's success. It's not all about being the best.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've been going for quite a while, so I'll wrap up shortly. Just a couple more questions. You mentioned briefly what you sort of think that your message to athletes would be. So what advice would you give to an athlete who's struggling with sort of setbacks or hardship?
Try and remember where you want to go. If you can have a goal in mind, write it down. So much more likely to happen when you write something down. Try and put a plan in place. Give yourself time. It might not be that you go to the 2028 LA Olympics, but you may say you want to be, I don't know, in the top 50, top 10, whatever it is in your realm, and celebrate each little win. Because again, I'm sure after you mentioned it earlier, when you had a bit of time out, it gives you a respect and in what you take for granted. Because you can get so comfortable so quickly, and use it as a time to maybe work on a different area of your life where you can maybe focus on a business or have an idea of what you want your life to look like in 10 and 15 years. And ultimately, I feel like we've said so many, other people's bits of gold, which we're just completely ripping off and changing. But
it's incredible.
I find so much value in other people's experiences. Remember, and I had a child at a school I was talking at yesterday come up to me, and he'd stopped gymnastics because they were calling him a girl. And I felt like I was looking at myself 10, 12 years ago. And he said, "What keeps you motivated? Like, how do you know? How did you keep going and stuff?" And I always remember I try to take advice. Everybody's going to give you advice. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Try and take advice from somebody who's done something you want to do or been where you want to be. And I had a hard decision with Gladiators because I was in the national team. One of the lads had an injury, and obviously, suddenly when that happens, your core team, maybe something changes. You don't know if they're going to be fit, and the dynamic can change. You may suddenly become really vital to the team. And I was about to film the semi-finals of Gladiators. I'd had one day off training. I'd just filmed the quarterfinals, had a day or whatever, and I was so physically tired. I was so exhausted, and I knew I was going to have to ask for training off from one of the national team camps. And in that moment, that was such a hard decision. I had probably everybody else against me, thinking or wanting you, not against me, wanting you to make a certain decision. And I get that. I'm a coach. Absolutely. I completely understand that. But I spoke to Roddy, who's the only person I knew at the time who'd been on Gladiators. And he said there's so many people, hundreds of people being involved in the show you're doing tomorrow, just so you can do this and it can go on TV. So many people. And it's really hard to sometimes understand how important you actually are in that moment. Obviously to the show. I'm not saying I'm the most important person ever, but just remember that hopefully in 5 years, if you're experiencing a setback or struggle, you'll be thankful for it. And if you're not, email Winston.
Write a complaint letter.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
What's your email?
So I'm going to write that on you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with regards to the like the school kid who's getting bullied or whatever that is, like, you have to think about what someone who is where you would want to be would think about where you are. No, like Olympic gymnast is going to judge someone who's just starting out in gymnastics. No, the biggest business owner in the world won't judge someone for starting a business. So I'm not saying don't listen to other people and block out the haters or whatever it is, but you have to think about where you want to be and what the person you look up to would tell you to do in that scenario.
People often say that you never get put down from someone above, and that hasn't been false yet. I'm sure there is some people that can put people down who are in great positions. But yeah, it's really about the journey. Becoming is better than being, to quote from one of my favorite authors, Carl Dweck.
Yeah,
so
it's true. It's true. So that seems like a good place to end it. So I'll call it there. But one last question. Now that you've experienced the podcast, who should I get on next?
I like that you have a good variety of people all the podcasts that I listen to solve a problem. I say I'm selfishly thinking, who would I like to listen to you talk to?
That's fine.
Screw everyone else. Everyone else is.
I'm sure if you wanted to hear it, I'm sure
You've-
other people would want to hear it.
You've had some great guests though, and I'm not I love listening to some, obviously the big names, but I find it interesting listening to the coaches that you've interviewed and getting insights from that. I love listening to how other coaches deal with something or treat something.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I love that. Obviously, it might not get all the clicks, but there's real value there. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're very dedicated. Again, just you'll have to listen back to our conversation where we say everything that bad happens to you is good.
I'll have to, have someone directly tell me that whenever I fall, whenever I do anything bad.
Viewers will just be slating you.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, just play it as like a voice recording or something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I know that turned into a bit of a compliment at the end, so thank you very much. But I'll keep going. I'm not stopping anytime soon. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Been a pleasure.
It's been really good. Been going for quite a while, I think. Which is not a bad thing by any means. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for listening to the Game of Gymnastics podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed. Leave a like and follow for more, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.